What is the number of bays stroke ramps? So how many working spaces do you have? Which suggests how many technicians you could have working in that business. So if you've got 5 bays, the number's 5. And then how many hours do you work per week? And then the actual number of technicians you have in your business. And then the actual number of productive hours per technician. Then the total number of productive hours, then the numbers of hours sold, then the cost of employing each individual, and then your hourly rate. That is what I use to calculate everything that I'm talking about in here. Now, what I'll probably do is at some point I'll probably put a link to the spreadsheet that I've used so you can have a look at it and examine it, maybe watch the video, look at the numbers and see what's going on. Because I think it's important that we make some key differences between how I do this and maybe how it's done in your garage management software, or how you've been shown to do it, or how you currently calculate it. I'm not saying any way is better or any way is right or any way is wrong. This is just the way I do it. This is how I've always done it. Therefore, this is how I keep on doing it. So the number of possible bays, or the number of possible technicians, times by the number of hours you would work in a week, gives you the total number of hours that your business could potentially be working for. So they're the number of hours that you could potentially be working for, which is the key, if you like, calculation in working out the utilization. The utilization then is simply the number of productive hours by all the technicians in that business. So for this example here, we've got four bays, 40 hours per week. And we've got 3 techs currently employed, and they have produced on average each 28.5 hours of productive work in that week, which is a total of 85.5 hours. So if we want to know what the utilization is, so simply the utilization is the number of productive hours for everyone divided by the amount of work the business could do, the number of hours the business could do, which is the theoretical number of bays multiplied by the number of hours normally worked, if you see what I mean. So in this case, we're going to have 160 for theoretical, and we've got 85. And if you do 85.5 divided by 160, you're going to get 53.44%. So this business is utilizing a little over half of its resources. And when we're looking at resources here, it's purely what I'm considering the utilization of this business is purely the amount of productive hours recorded against the potential number of hours that could have been worked. So that's how we get that number. It gives you an idea of how much room you've got to grow. It also gives you an idea of how much time your technicians are spent doing productive work. Now, I often look at it as a whole business, and therefore if we look at efficiency in the same way, the efficiency is the number of hours sold divided by the number of hours actually worked. So we go away now from the 160, which is the theoretical number of hours that could have been worked, to the number of hours that should have been worked, which is the number of techs multiplied by the number of hours in the week. So now we get 60 divided by 120, which gives us 50%. That is the difference between the two calculations, if you like. So the difference between the two calculations is one is theoretical, how many people could be working here. The other one uses how many people are working here. One is the number of productive hours, and the other one is the actual number of hours sold. So you can see they're all using very similar data, but the calculations change ever so slightly. So we'll go through that again. Utilization is the number of hours actually worked divided by the number of hours that potentially could have been worked if all of the bays were full. And efficiency is the number of hours sold divided by the number of hours that should have been worked. So the number of technicians multiplied by the number of hours in a week. So that gives you 2 different percentages. Although they're very similar in this case, it gives you 2 different percentages you can work on and start to look at. And that's as the whole business. So what if you wanted to look at this for individuals, which is often the case in businesses. You want to look at how utilization and efficiency changes between members of staff, and it might depend on their job role within the business. Because if you think about it, you probably don't want your master technician moving cars around in the morning. You may do, but it's probably not the greatest use of his time. Or your diag tech may not be moving cars around in the evening or in the night. Your diag tech probably isn't washing the odd car, stuff like that, because he's a more valuable resource, and we'll come to that in a second. So when we look at it from an individual's point of view, we change the term utilization to productivity, and that's the only difference. Everything else about it is the same. So now the number of technicians isn't a theoretical, it's one. So we have a productivity for one person, therefore is the number of hours that person could have worked is the if you like the number that we're looking for. So that's normally 40 divided by the number of productive hours in that week. Now by productive hours, if you've got garage management software, it's whenever they were, if you like, logged on to a job, when they were physically repairing vehicles, if in the case of a technician. It's not when he was speaking to people, answering the phone, potentially, depending on how you work it within your business. If he was washing the car, you might say that's all part of the service. It depends on how you break it down. But what you really want to do, what you really want to drill down to from getting this data from a business, what you really want is to find out how much of your time does each technician actually spend repairing vehicles. That's what this is a measure of from an individual point of view. Now, it's not always down to the individual technician when this number is lower, because it could be down to actually the way the business is set up. Your plan of action every day may include getting vehicles out of the way, clearing space to get cars on the ramp, and likewise bringing them all in the evening, and you might be losing a significant proportion of your time doing that every day. If you multiply that by the number of technicians every day, you quickly start to get an idea of where you can start to lose what we call productivity from your technician. So it's utilization, but we don't call it utilize, or I don't. I call it productivity because it concerns an individual, and it's an individual's productivity. The efficiency is exactly the same. It's the number of hours sold divided by the number of hours worked by that technician. And that gives you it for an individual. And you can start to look at why people, or why different technicians have different productivity rates, and they have different efficiency rates. And this, as I said in the introduction piece, high utilization doesn't necessarily mean high efficiency. You know, you could have a technician that continuously works a high proportion of his daily hours on vehicles, but lots of those hours do not get booked out for whatever reason. It could be the nature of work that individual does. It could be the level of training for that individual. It could be simply that the front of house isn't doing as well as they could be in terms of billing all of the available hours. It could be that that technician isn't great at doing write-ups on his job card that allows you to be able to bill those hours. He might not be notifying the front of house, or the front of house may be being notified but don't want to make that phone call. These are all areas where you can examine your business in sort of forensic detail and compare tech with tech. It doesn't have to be, if you like, a spying game, and it's not about clock watching and bonuses and stuff like that. This is an ideal tool for within your business to start to look at the type of work you do. And that's the final example I want to give you is if you were to compare two technicians. So we've just done a normal technician, and he has an efficiency of 55% because 22 of his hours are sold every week, or on average, let's say that for this particular week, if you want, he sold 22 hours out of the 40 he worked, and so he's 55% efficient. He was productive for 31.5 hours out of the 40, so he was 78.75% productive, which is pretty good. So what you're probably looking for, and I said I'd give you some examples. So from a utilization point of view, it depends on how developed your business is, how close to the ideal business model you are. Have you got spare capacity? That's just what utilization tells you. It just tells you how much room you've got to grow. But when it comes to productivity, you probably want your technicians at somewhere close to 80% productivity. And this individual here is 78.75% productive in this particular week. And he has sold 22 of his potentially 40 hours, although he only worked 31.5. So you can see that it's not too bad. So his efficiency was 55%, and a typical efficiency for an independent garage is somewhere between I'm going to say the average is somewhere between 50 and 75%, so about 62.5%. Now there will be garages that are slightly below that, and there will be garages that are saying, oh, we're way above that. But if you're way above that, then check how you're measuring it, because that's pretty good. 75% is the top end of the estimate for general repair work. Now if you just do very quick and simple servicing, you may be able to do better. But this is a typical independent garage, and this is the data I've had. So what if you've got a specialist in your workshop? So I'll use the example of a diagnostic technician. Right now, the difference between the diagnostic technician and a normal technician is the hourly rate is different, and his cost of employment is slightly higher. You've invested more in training, in the equipment, in the work that he does. So the unit income is higher, but the unit cost is higher. Stands to reason. Makes sense. So we don't try and have our most skilled and highest earning, if you like, technician doing stuff that isn't keeping him in work, or chained to the ramp, as I often hear it called. So he, out of his 40 hours in his week, he is productive for 35.5 of them. So basically this business is booking in just over sort of 2 or 3 diagnostic jobs for this guy every day, and he's been productive for 35.5 hours, which was 88.75% of the time this technician was engaged on the job doing work. And the number of hours sold was 24, which gives him an efficiency of 60%. So he's 60% efficient and nearly 89% productive. His hourly rate is £80 an hour, and his cost of employment, the cost of him being there, unit cost, is 28. Now we can change the efficiency rating here to reflect maybe a little bit more to be what it would be like in an industry, where we're going to look at the unit cost against the unit income. And the efficiency for this technician now is pounds per hour, and it's basically his efficiency minus his cost of employment. And the technician in this case is earning the business £20 for every hour he attends, whereas the previous technician is earning £11 for every hour they attend. So you can understand why you want to keep the higher productivity, or you want the higher efficiency technician to have a higher productivity, therefore he has a better efficiency than, for example, someone on a, if you like, who's not bringing in quite so much in terms of their efficiency as calculated in pounds per hour. So you can see why you can use these calculations, and then you can build up a picture of your business for when it's right to start to employ a valeter, when it's right to employ or to look at when you need to get your own MOT bay, because you can start to find out where the productivity is going down the drain, driving back and forth to the MOT station, washing cars, doing the front of house roll. You can see how looking at all of this stuff can give you a better picture of how people are employed, or how they're utilized, their productivity within your business, as well as the efficiency. Many people call utilization, which is number of hours worked, or the number of productive hours divided by the number of hours worked as the utilization. I look at that slightly different. What I look at there is the utilization of the business and the productivity, slight difference for the individual. Like I say, I'll share the spreadsheet that I use for this in the notes. If anyone's got any questions, send me a direct message. If not, have a great evening and good luck. Ta-da.